This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the best all-in-one platform for any of your website building needs. Hey guys, it's Celestia, and today I'm finally gonna try to open the can of worms that is the ethics of AI art. I've talked about it once before, linked in the iCard above, but that was pretty much exclusively in the capacity of, is it real art and should artists be afraid of it? Go watch that if that's a topic that interests you, but it's not what we're gonna talk about now. Instead, we're gonna talk about whether or not the creation of AI art is ever ethical, and the many dilemmas surrounding it as a form of media. But before I get myself attacked by half the internet, let me take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is a website building and hosting platform that has supported this channel for a long time now, and yes, I've been using it for a million years, long before they started that support. As you can see, both my art studio and personal portfolio were made and hosted on Squarespace. And based on those alone, you can probably tell that they have some exceptional tools to make sharing your art with the world easy, especially with their versatile gallery options. But I felt like these ad reads were getting too boring, so I decided to go feral and bring you something new. Cheddar, the experience. Yeah, I have regrets. But here's an entire website about my cat, Cheddar, to show you how versatile Squarespace can really be. He's insane and terrible, but we love him, and with Squarespace we can devote an entire section of the internet to him. Just like you could make an actual functional portfolio, I can make an extensive gallery of photos of this idiot, all of which were completely different sizes and qualities, but with Squarespace's automatic image scaling, they all look beautiful together without any cropping or resizing necessary. Cheddar even has merch on his site because Squarespace offers e-commerce integration and print-on-demand services, so you could too. Cheddar also has an About the Artist section because obviously he's an artist, and I'm considering adding a community section there as well where you can pay to see behind-the-scenes Cheddar content, because you can do that with Squarespace. Look, you get it. Squarespace is awesome, and if I can make a site for my cat look this good, you can make your site look 10 times better, no matter what you need it for. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and please go check out squarespace.com now to get a free trial to build a site that you're truly proud of. And once you have, go to squarespace.com/DuchessCelestia to get 10% off your first domain purchase. So that beautiful experience out of the way, let's get into the video. First of all, if you don't know what AI-generated art is, I mean, how? And why are you even watching this? Regardless, I'm definitely not the person to go to if you want a detailed explanation of what it is or how it works, so I'll link some videos in the description if that is something you're looking for, but I'll also give a very quick dumbed-down summary of it for clarity's sake here. AI art is, basically, an image created by an algorithm based on a text prompt. The ways in which these images are generated vary from program to program, but the most popular form is Stable Diffusion, which is what I'll be focusing on in this video. Those videos I linked before explain Stable Diffusion better than I ever could, so again, go watch those for more information about the technical side of it. But what's relevant to today's discussion is that Stable Diffusion models generate those images based on a collection of stolen art. What I mean by that is that in order for AI art to actually create anything, it needs a wide variety of reference images to tell it how things are supposed to look. And unfortunately for artists, the wide variety of references that most models use is called LAION 5B, a collection of over 170 million images that were scraped from the internet without the consent of the creators and copyright holders of those images. Most Stable Diffusion models were trained on this dataset, which means that they're effectively using the work of artists everywhere who did not consent to that use to create images that the model's creators are profiting from. Not only that, but as a result of this dataset's use in training, AI can effectively replicate the style of any individual artist whose work was included in large enough quantities, which is terrifying. Now, to be as clear as possible, Stable Diffusion programs do not store these stolen images. They don't combine tiny portions of a bunch of them to create some collage-like output. They were simply trained on them, meaning that the images were exclusively used to teach the AI what certain things looked like in certain ways, and now its output is just created by using that existing knowledge. So no, artist's work is not actively being like photobashed or combined to create this AI art, but it is still using its memory of that work to create what it does. And given that AI can't forget, it doesn't matter that LAION has promised not to use copyrighted work in future datasets, because the existing model has already learned everything from that copyrighted work, and that can't be undone. That, combined with the fact that these AI art generators are prone to overfitting at least 1.88% of the time, which refers to an instance in which the AI model creates something nearly identical to an image from its training data, gives artists every reason to find its use problematic, even if their work isn't being being directly used and combined on a technical level. And naturally, this is where the majority of the ethical concerns arise from. AI art generation is an incredibly profitable industry, and none of those profits are going to the artists whose work makes that generation possible in the first place. Instead, it's going to the companies that create these models and charge people to use them, and the people that are creating AI art with them and selling it as if it actually belongs to them. Obviously, that's going to cause some problems in the art community, and it most definitely has, not just ethically, but legally too. There's a new lawsuit surrounding the copyright violation resulting from AI art generation every day. Getty Images is suing Stability AI, the creators of Stable Diffusion, for illegally scraping its content. There's a class action lawsuit spearheaded by 3 artists against Microsoft, GitHub, and OpenAI for the exact same reason, and there are undeniably many more similar cases coming in the very near future. Copyright law is woefully unequipped to handle the legal minefield that is AI art, and artists are fighting every day to change that despite that overwhelming lack of clarity. What is clear, though, is that these companies knew exactly what they were doing when they trained their models on stolen art. They just prefer to ask forgiveness rather than permission. Dance Diffusion, another form of AI art generation by the same company that creates music rather than images, was created perfectly ethically by comparison. Harmony, which is either owned by or significantly funded by Stability AI, the creators of Stable Diffusion, openly admitted that, and I quote, "It's built on datasets composed entirely of copyright-free and voluntarily provided music and audio samples. Because diffusion models are prone to memorization and overfitting, releasing a model trained on copyrighted data could potentially result in legal issues." So because copyright in music is more actively and aggressively policed, they decided to respect the rights of musicians, while openly acknowledging that their program that does the exact same thing for visual art is violating the rights of visual artists, and they just don't care. They knew it was unethical and illegal, but chose to do it anyway. And now they're being super generous and awesome by saying, "Okay, we'll stop now, sorry, LOL," after the damage has already been done. And in terms of the debate surrounding the ethics of AI art, that damage is often what it comes down to. I asked you guys on Twitter if you would consider the creation of AI art to be ethical if LAION, the dataset composed of stolen art, was not used, and the overwhelming majority of you said that that would be perfectly fine. And honestly, in many ways, I agree. If AI art wasn't actively infringing on artists' rights and profiting from that infringement, I don't think nearly as many people would find it so offensive, myself included. But unfortunately, since AI is not capable of forgetting what it was trained on, this ethical dilemma is unsolvable. There can be no ethical AI art so long as LAION is used in its creation, and LAION cannot be retroactively made to be ethical. It would have to be erased and rebuilt, which is a process so expensive and time-consuming that it's beyond unlikely that it will ever happen. So on that basis alone, we can pretty effectively conclude that AI art is inherently unethical and exploitative. Some will still argue that because the AI is effectively just using this dataset as reference, artists' copyrights are not being infringed because it's the same as a human artist using that work as reference. On the surface, this point seems almost reasonable. A human using another human's work as reference in their own would not be considered to be unethical or illegal by most, although there are some cases where that can be debated, as I discussed in a recent video linked in the card above. So why is it unethical or illegal for an AI to do the same? Well, there are quite a few reasons, actually, that this argument thoroughly fails to consider. First of all, a human using reference is looking at that reference and filtering it through the lens of their perception and artistic skill, reinterpreting and reimagining it in their work. AI is not doing that because AI is not capable of creativity or creative reinterpretation. It's using that reference to directly recreate an aspect of the subject matter that it's trying to create, and it's doing so with a degree of accuracy that a human being cannot achieve. A human being cannot recreate the reference one-to-one perfectly. An AI can, and often it does. And not only is it recreating rather than reimagining its reference, it's doing so at a rate and scale that a human being could never achieve. A human artist can only realistically use a limited number of references based on the sheer amount of time that it would take to compile and even perceive anywhere near the 170 million images that AI art generators have at their disposal. These programs are using more references at one time than we could even see in our lifetimes, much less actually constructively utilize in our work, and they're using them faster. Human artists will take hours to consciously study and implement a reference, creatively reinterpreting it in the process, whereas AI art can, in seconds, combine its perfect, unfailing memory of every reference it's ever seen, because it's not like a human artist. A human artist's work is inspired by the reference material acquired through years of study and even just the perception of the things they see in daily life. And because our memory isn't perfect, those references are subject to deterioration in terms of accuracy. Two human artists can recall the exact same reference image of a dog wearing a sweater, and even in identical photorealistic styles, interpret that reference completely differently, because that reference is filtered through the quality of their memory and the way they perceived that reference in the first place. AI doesn't do that. It has a photographic memory that never fails or diminishes, and it cannot perceive the way we can. So it's not just using reference in the way that a human does, it's recreating it in a way that we could never hope to achieve. So as long as its references are stolen works of real artists, the just using reference argument does not, to me, hold up as a defense against AI art being unethical. But what if they weren't? What if those references weren't stolen? Imagine, for the sake of debate, a world where LAION was created only using ethically sourced images that they had the rights to, where artists' work was only used for training if they volunteered it to be. For many, that alone would make AI art generation completely ethical, but for others, there are still some significant concerns that would remain, because while LAION and the technical side of AI art is the major point of contention where AI art ethics are concerned, the human side of AI art also warrants consideration. It's not just about how this art is made, but also how it's used. And in terms of how it's used, the biggest ethical concern that most artists have is, predictably, about money. We're all slaves to capitalism, so that's neither surprising nor blameworthy. Artists everywhere are terrified that the use and popularization of AI art in industry and individual settings is going to completely eradicate the need for human artists, completely erasing many or even most available job opportunities for them. And this is a point that I did briefly discuss in my previous AI art video, where I said that while some jobs are likely to be lost due to AI art, particularly those focusing on concept art and visual development, AI art will not be likely to replace human artists in fields where more refinement is required, like in the creation of fully rendered illustrations, and that there would still need to be human artists employed to fix the inevitable errors made by the AI. And to an extent, I still believe that. I still believe that human artists will be necessary employees even if the company employing them is using AI to make the art, because they'll need to refine it. And I still believe that the desire for human-made art will continue to result in individuals commissioning real artists rather than their AI counterparts. But I'm also kind of forced to eat my words there, because I severely underestimated how quickly AI art would improve and how callously and lazily companies would use it not to help their artists, but to replace them. Tor, a globally acclaimed science fiction and fantasy publisher, used AI art instead of human art to create their book cover and tried to pass it off as human-made. The Netflix anime The Dog and the Boy actively took jobs away from human artists by creating all of their background images with AI art generation, claiming that it was because of a so-called labor shortage in the anime industry, which is objectively and provably non-existent. A million artists would have killed for the opportunity to make those backgrounds. Tons of art contests have been entered and won by quote-unquote artists passing off AI art as their own. Jobs are being lost, and they're being lost faster than they're being created, something that is appearing to show no signs of stopping. And I have to agree that when AI art generation is being used to replace human artists rather than make their jobs easier, that is still unethical, even if the AI art itself wasn't. I've seen a lot of people argue that AI art is no different than digital art. It's a step towards the future that artists should be using as a tool, not seeing as the enemy. People, my past self included, have made the comparison that when digital art programs started to become more popular and accessible, art purists were quick to demean it as being cheating, not real art, or otherwise condemnable just because it made some aspects of art creation easier, despite the fact that in reality, it's a tool that should be embraced, and one that's effectiveness is still thoroughly dependent on the skill level of the artist using that tool. And based on that logic, are we not doing the same to AI art? Are we refusing to see it as a useful tool and rejecting helpful technological advancements out of some antiquated desire to keep art pure? Well, as I said, I used to think so, but research and time have shown me the flaws in that argument. Yes, it can be a tool when used to create reference or a base image to work from and transform, but that's not how it's being used by the vast majority of people. It's not being used to make the art creation process easier. It's being used as a substitute for the art creation process altogether. Using Photoshop can make it easier to draw, but it can't draw for you. To make a good, compelling piece using Photoshop, you need to know how to draw and put time and effort into doing so. But you don't need time, effort, or skill to use AI to create a fully rendered piece in minutes, even if that piece often does have a litany of errors. And that is an exceptionally significant difference. And that difference is why it's so problematic, in my opinion, to see people praising these programs for democratizing art and making it so everyone can be an artist. Because I'm sorry, if a program completes the entire art creation process itself, you are not making that art and you are not an artist. And the popularization and normalization of this belief is completely and thoroughly devaluing artists and art itself. It's telling people that they don't have to spend years studying and practicing practicing in order to learn how to create art themselves. They can just skip it and have a program do it, as if what that program makes is their own art. It's not. And not only is that offensive to every artist who spent their whole life studying to get where they are, it's potentially very harmful to the future of art itself, because it's actively discouraging people who are interested in art but daunted by the work that goes into learning to make it from doing so. Because why would they when this is so much easier? Not only is AI art ethically questionable in this instance, it's a pretty terrifying threat to the art community altogether. But all of that said, I'm not naive. I acknowledge that at the end of the day, no discussion about whether or not AI art can ever be ethical is gonna stop it from existing. Resisting AI art is not gonna make it go away or diminish its popularity and future growth and development. It's here, and it's here to stay. I'm not saying we should resist it at every turn, as if that could possibly take us back to a time before it existed. There's no point fighting against new technology, especially when its use is already so normalized. And choosing to do so anyway is a waste of time and energy that could be better spent making the future of AI art more artist-friendly instead. Saying AI art is bad and shouldn't exist isn't accomplishing anything. Its existence is an inevitability at this point. Instead, we should be putting our energy into making it more ethical, fighting for ethically sourced datasets, refusing to support models trained on LAION 5B, using it to help our work as a tool, developing new ways to turn it into something that artists can wield rather than be replaced by, fighting for legislation that forces companies to have a minimum number of human artists on creative projects, and so on. There is no future where we get rid of AI art, and there's no future where it's a purely good ethical thing. But there could be a future where it's a better, more ethical thing. And if we can't have good, we may as well fight for less bad. And that's where I'll end this. No, I don't think AI art is ethical, but I think that if we fight hard enough to have our voices heard, it could be a lot more so than it is now. So it's more important than ever to speak up and fight that fight. Changes are being made. Legal action is being taken. And while the harm that it's already done can't be undone, we can take action to make sure less is done in the future. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please leave a like and subscribe if you did. Special thank you as always to channel members Cafe Soleil, Joseph Solomon, and Lotus Dreams Art, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Blue Swanson, Unity, Cora Fear, Jamisha Walker, Alenkshi, Soul Crystal, Kim Yen, Shamil Sheep, Crazy Hassar, Gentong, Jacobus Peterson, Grayson Xavier, Tyfinch94, Milkbean, MG, Eclectrica, and Blah Mage for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.